On the day of her marriage, her dog stood in her way, revealing a poignant secret. Standing in front of the floor-length mirror in her old room, Anna Williams barely acknowledged the reflection of the woman before her. The dreamy ivory gown she had imagined since childhood fit her like a glove, and her auburn locks fell gracefully in soft curls under her veil. Everything was just as she had envisioned for the last year and a half. Well, nearly everything. Her cherished German shepherd, Rex, was sprawled at her feet, his head on his paws. His amber eyes followed her every move with an intensity that was different from his usual vigilant stare. Now 13, he had been by her side throughout high school, college, and into her early years of adulthood. She had found him as a scruffy 8-month-old puppy at the local animal shelter in their quaint Connecticut town, and in turn, he had saved her in countless ways. "What do you think, Rex?" Anna asked, glancing down at him as the lace of her dress shimmered in the sunlight pouring through her bedroom window. "Is David a keeper?" Upon hearing her fiancé's name, Rex's ears perked up, but he stayed unusually calm. Normally the mention of David, whom he had come to adore over the last 3 years, would have him leaping up. Today, however, there was a noticeable change in his demeanor. Her mother, Susan, appeared at the door. "Sweetheart, the makeup artist has arrived. Are you ready?" "Just a minute, Mom," Anna replied, taking one final look at herself in the mirror before bending down to caress Rex behind his ears. "Let's go, boy. It's time to turn me into a bride." Rex got up slowly, his aging joints making a faint noise. A wave of sadness washed over Anna. He wasn't the lively young pup he once was, but he remained her closest companion. She had firmly decided that he would take part in her wedding, despite her mother's initial reluctance. David, recognizing the profound bond Anna shared with Rex, had enthusiastically agreed to include him. They had even selected a special collar, adorned with a tiny bow tie, for the big day. The subsequent 2 hours were a blur of activity. Bridesmaids in pale blue gowns buzzed around the house. The air buzzed with the sounds of hairstylists and makeup artists at work, and the rhythmic clicking of Anna's mother's heels echoed as she liaised with the wedding planner. Throughout the bustle, Rex remained by Anna's side, unusually quiet. "Is he okay?" Laura, Anna's maid of honor and longtime friend since middle school, inquired as they were about to head to the church. "He seems a bit off today," Anna replied with a slight frown, her hand gently stroking Rex's back. "I think he's just overwhelmed by all the noise and excitement. He's always been so sensitive." Yet Anna felt it was something more serious. Rex had been off his usual habits for several days, eating less, moving sluggishly, and sleeping more than usual. She had planned to take him to the vet, but the last-minute rush of wedding preparations had gotten in the way. "We really need to move along," Susan said, glancing anxiously at her watch. "The photographer needs some early shots, and we could hit traffic." Anna nodded, gathering up her dress. "Let's go, Rex, it's time." Although the drive to the Grand St. Patrick's Church was brief, Anna's nerves were on edge, not due to cold feet about marrying David, but because of her concerns for Rex. He clung to her more than usual during the ride, resting his head on her lap, deviating from his typical good behavior in the car. Upon their arrival, with a good hour before the ceremony was to start, the photographer was already setting up in the lush church garden, capitalizing on the idyllic late September ambiance. The sunlight streamed through the autumn leaves, bathing everything in a golden glow that was just what Anna had envisioned. "The bride first, please," the photographer instructed, positioning Anna by a majestic old oak tree. "We'll add the others soon after." Just then, Rex, who had been calmly sitting by her father, stood up unexpectedly. Before anyone could intervene, he walked straight over to Anna and stationed himself squarely in front of her, obscuring the photographer's view. "Rex, please move," Anna coaxed, trying to gently usher him aside, but he remained steadfast. He wasn't being aggressive. Rather, he just stood against her, gazing up with his deep, expressive eyes. "Rex, come here," called her father, trying to lure him away, but to no avail. "Perhaps he needs a quick walk," Laura suggested, reaching for his leash. Yet, as Laura approached, Rex only pressed tighter against Anna, almost making her stumble. "What's the matter, Rex?" Anna knelt down, her wedding dress touching the ground, to meet his gaze. It was then she observed what she had missed before. His breath was labored, and a subtle tremor shook his legs, signs that hadn't been apparent earlier. "Anna, we really should finish these photos," her mother urged, her tone tinged with impatience as the arrival of guests loomed. Anna was hardly aware of her surroundings, her entire attention fixed on Rex as he nestled his head onto her shoulder, a sign he was unwell and seeking solace. His warmth pressed against her, excessively hot. "Something's wrong," she murmured, her voice trembling. "He's not all right." Laura crouched by their side, her hand lightly touching Rex's flank. "His heart is pounding." Her father moved closer, his face marked with worry. "Do we need to get the vet?" Susan started, "But the wedding," then stopped, silenced by the stern look Anna gave her. Without hesitation, Anna was on her phone, calling Dr. Smith, the veterinarian who had cared for Rex since his adoption. Her hands quivered as she held the phone to her ear. "Dr. Smith's emergency service," Kate speaking. "Kate, it's Anna Williams. Rex is struggling to breathe. His heart's racing and he's behaving oddly. I need help right away." There was a brief silence on the line. "Anna, isn't today your wedding day?" "Yes, but—" Anna's voice broke off. "Please, just bring him in immediately. Dr. Smith is here doing paperwork. He can see Rex right now." As Anna raised her head, she saw the circle of concerned faces around her. Her parents, Laura, the photographer, and the wedding planner, who was now talking urgently into her headset. Her gaze finally settled on her father. "Go," he said decisively. "I'll call David and explain. Laura can drive you." "But Anna Williams," her father continued, his voice stern like it was in her childhood, "that dog has stood by you through everything. Your first heartbreak, your college finals, your grandmother's death. He was there when you met David and hasn't left your side since. You don't turn your back on family in their time of need." Tears gathered in Anna's eyes as she embraced her father. "Thank you." Immediately after, things happened swiftly. Laura assisted Anna with her dress as they headed for her car, Rex ambling beside them, occasionally pressing against Anna's legs for reassurance. Anna's mother paused briefly, then sprang into action, promising to manage the guests and directing the wedding planner to call the reception venue. The ride to the veterinary clinic was filled with tension. Anna sat in the back seat, Rex's head resting in her lap, her wedding dress billowing around them like a frothy sea. She maintained one hand on his chest to feel his breaths and caressed his aging muzzle with the other. "Remember when you first brought him home?" Laura asked, attempting to lighten the mood. "He was such a challenge." Despite her concerns, a small smile touched Anna's lips. "He chewed up my favorite shoes in that first week, and my mom's garden gloves, and that horrible hat my aunt gave me for Christmas, the one decorated with plastic fruits." "He did you a favor with that hat," Laura quipped. They reached the clinic faster than expected. Dr. Smith greeted them at the entrance, his expression revealing a brief surprise at Anna's bridal attire. But he immediately focused on Rex, guiding him inside without a word. The wait during Rex's examination felt interminable. Anna paced the compact room, the rustle of her dress marking her anxiety, while Laura sat silently, occasionally glancing at her phone to provide updates to those waiting. When Dr. Smith reappeared, his solemn expression caused Anna's heart to sink. "Anna, please take a seat," he urged, his tone signaling the dreaded news no pet owner wants to hear. Her knees buckling, Anna was supported to a chair by Laura, who was quickly by her side. "Rex is suffering from a cardiac condition," Dr. Smith said softly. "The tests indicate he's in the initial stages of heart failure. Today's stress and excitement likely worsened his condition." Anna felt a vacuum form around her. "But he seemed all right just days ago." "These issues can escalate quickly, especially in senior dogs," Dr. Smith explained. "Given that he's 13, he's outlived most dogs of his breed. He's been signaling something was wrong in his own way." "By staying close to you," Anna murmured, realization setting in. Dr. Smith nodded. "Dogs are remarkably perceptive. He knew he needed help, and you're his most trusted companion. What are our options?" "We'll start him on medication immediately," Dr. Smith proposed. "It won't reverse the condition, but it will alleviate symptoms and improve his comfort. However, Anna," he hesitated, "considering his age and condition severity, we're likely looking at months, not years." As the tears Anna had restrained now freely flowed, Laura held her hand with a firm, supportive grip. "I need to stay with him," Anna declared with resolve. "Anna," Laura softly began to object, but Anna cut her off. "No, you don't understand. When I brought Rex home, I promised him he'd never have to face anything alone when he needed me most. I vowed to be there for him, as he has for me." She glanced down at her wedding dress and then fixed her eyes on Dr. Smith. "Can we start the treatment right now?" The subsequent hour whirled by in a flurry of activity. Dr. Smith administered the initial dose of medication and detailed the treatment strategy. Anna, sitting by Rex's bed on the floor, her dress enveloping her like a protective shell, listened carefully and noted everything on her phone. Outside this small, poignant scene, life continued. Laura liaised with both families, informing them of the emergency which delayed the wedding ceremony and postponed the reception. Buzzing from her phone interrupted her thoughts. It was a message from David. "How is he?" In the chaos, Anna hadn't considered David's response to the day's upheaval. Her fingers trembled as she replied, "Not good. Heart failure. I'm so sorry about the wedding." Almost immediately, 3 dots flashed on her screen, followed by his reassuring words, "Don't apologize. I'm on my way." David's entrance through the clinic door, accompanied by his best man, Brian, both sharply dressed in their tuxedos, was a stark contrast to the somber mood inside. Anna, sitting beside Rex, looked up, her bridal makeup smeared by tears, her hair loosened from its elegant style, her dress crumpled. She started to apologize. "I'm so sorry." But David was already by her side, kneeling on the floor next to her. "Hey," he whispered, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "Remember what I said when I proposed? I told you I wanted to marry you because you have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, because you love deeply and unconditionally. How could I be upset with you for being exactly that?" Anna's eyes welled up again as she leaned into his embrace. "But the wedding can wait," David asserted. "All those people, the fancy venue, the perfectly planned timeline, none of that matters now. What's important is that we're together, all of us." He reached out and gently scratched behind Rex's ears, eliciting a weak thump of the tail from the old dog in response. "Actually," Brian chimed in from where he stood with Laura, "we might have an idea about that." Laura's excitement was palpable as she shared the news. "We've made a few calls. The minister is willing to come here, and your parents agree. It's not the wedding you envisioned, but we could have it here," she explained. Anna surveyed the examination room, her gaze finally settling on Rex, who looked up at her with the same loving eyes that had first captured her heart 13 years earlier. "Really? Only if you want to," David added. "We can also wait, reschedule everything." "No," Anna quickly responded, her voice brightening as she smiled through tears. "This is perfect. Rex has been with us for every significant moment. When we first met at the park, on our first date, and when you proposed. He should be here for this too. Thus, within 2 hours, Anna Williams and David Anderson were wed in the waiting room of Riverside Veterinary Clinic. Anna's dress, though wrinkled, shone under the clinic's lights. Her makeup was touched up by Laura, and her hair cascaded in soft waves down her shoulders. David's tuxedo bore the signs of his time spent on the floor next to Rex. The ceremony was intimate, attended only by their parents, the minister, Laura, Brian and Rex, who donned a bow-tie collar and rested comfortably with a new IV port. As they exchanged vows, Rex lay contentedly at their feet. Dr. Smith and his team observed from the doorway, occasionally dabbing at their eyes as the minister declared Anna and David husband and wife. When David kissed his bride, Rex raised his head and let out a gentle woof, prompting a mixture of laughter and tears from the small gathering. That night, rather than swaying to music at their wedding party, Anna and David found themselves seated cross-legged on their apartment floor, with Rex nestled between them, eating Chinese takeout in their ceremonial attire. They alternately offered him bits of plain chicken, which Dr. Smith had recommended. David observed Rex delicately accepting a morsel from Anna and remarked, "You know, the day I met you and Rex at the park, I understood he came with the territory. I just never anticipated how much he'd teach me about love." Anna gazed at her new husband with interest. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Consider today. You planned the perfect wedding, everything exactly as you envisioned, but the instant Rex needed us, none of that mattered. You didn't think twice. That's true love, the kind that overlooks the cost, that's there no matter the circumstances. It's the kind I hope will define our marriage." Gently leaning in so as not to wake Rex, who had fallen asleep, Anna kissed him. "When did you become so insightful?" "I've been learning from the best," David replied with a smile, gesturing towards Rex. "He's been teaching us about unconditional love from the start." In the months that ensued, their time with Rex was both joyful and challenging. Rex had his ups and downs. The treatments offered some relief, yet they couldn't halt the progression of his illness. Anna and David rearranged their lives to cater to his needs, alternating who would stay home with him on his lethargic days, cherishing the good days with brief strolls in the park, where their paths first crossed, and soothing him on the tougher days. Despite everything, Rex's kind and loving nature persisted. He continued to welcome them at the door with a wag of his tail if he couldn't jump up, insisted on sleeping beside their bed, pleaded for treats with his expressive eyes, and kept showing his affection in myriad subtle ways. On a serene spring evening, almost half a year since their wedding, Rex signaled it was time. He had enjoyed a particularly good day, savoring his meals, basking in the backyard sun, and even tenderly engaging with his favorite toy. As dusk approached, however, he grew uneasy, pacing between Anna and David as if to confirm their presence. They reached out to Dr. Smith, who arrived at their home. In the comfort of their living room, with Rex's head resting in Anna's lap and David gently caressing his back, they bid farewell to the loyal companion who had enriched their lives deeply. "Thank you," Anna murmured into Rex's ear as he quietly passed away. "Thank you for everything, for being my guardian, my friend, for leading me to David, for showing us the true essence of love, and for choosing me back then at the shelter." Later that night, as they sifted through photographs from their unique wedding day, Anna stopped at one taken unobtrusively by Laura. It captured a moment during their vows, not looking at each other or the officiant, but both gazing at Rex, who returned their look with a gaze filled with unconditional love. "He knew," Anna whispered, her finger gently tracing Rex's image in the photo. "On that day at the church, when he wouldn't let me walk down the aisle, He knew his time was short, and he wanted to ensure we grasped what truly mattered. David enveloped her in his embrace. He did just that. Our wedding day might not have been perfect by conventional standards, but it was perfect for us. Influenced by Rex, Anna and David began their marriage prioritizing the essential elements: love, dedication, and unwavering support for one another. A year later, standing outside the Riverside Animal Shelter, the very place Anna had first encountered Rex 13 years prior, they felt ready to love again after months of mourning. "Are you sure about this?" David asked tenderly, giving Anna's hand a reassuring squeeze. With a nod, Anna touched the locket around her neck that held a tiny picture of Rex. "He taught us so much about love. Honoring his memory by sharing that love with another dog in need is the right thing to do," she said confidently. As they entered, the familiar cacophony and sense of the shelter enveloped them. Passing by the kennels, Anna was vividly reminded of the day she met Rex, a thin, timid German Shepherd puppy whose deep, expressive eyes had instantly captured her heart. They paused at the last kennel of one row, where a senior golden retriever lay on a faded blanket, his muzzle tinged with grey, his gentle brown eyes watching them quietly. The name tag read, "Duke, age 10. "Most people look for puppies or younger dogs," the shelter worker noted, seeing their interest. "Duke has been here for 3 months. His owners had to give him up when they moved to a nursing facility. He's as sweet as can be, but his age deters most." Anna knelt by the kennel door, and Duke, noticing her presence, lifted his head and slowly approached, pressing his nose against her outstretched hand through the gate. "He has arthritis in his back legs," the shelter worker continued. "He'll need medication and isn't suited for long walks, but he's still perfect in his own way." Anna looked up at David, her eyes brimming with tears. David nodded, his understanding clear. That night, Duke acclimated to their home as though he had always belonged. He claimed Rex's old bed by the fireplace, even though they had bought him a new one. It seemed he understood the significance of this space, honoring the legacy of the dog who had been there before. As they lounged on the couch, watching Duke sleep in the spot that Rex once loved, Anna reflected, "You know, some might think we were crazy for adopting an older dog, knowing our time with him might be short." David smiled and drew her in closer. "But we know the truth, don't we? Rex showed us that it's not about how long we have, but the depth of love we share. And he taught us that the most profound love stories don't always follow a perfect script." Anna rested her head on his shoulder, watching Duke's dreaming twitches. Rex's final lesson wasn't just about what matters on our wedding day. It was about understanding that love is worth every sacrifice, every bit of pain. That's why we can open our hearts to Duke, despite knowing the farewell might come soon, and look at the joy he's already bringing us. David glanced at Duke, who had stirred and was now looking at them with eyes full of serenity. "He's helping us honor Rex's memory by continuing the cycle of love," David reflected. That night, as they prepared for bed, Duke followed them upstairs and took up Rex's old spot next to Anna's side of the bed. As she fell asleep, Anna felt as if 2 guardians, one tangible and one eternally remembered, were watching over her. Years later, Anna and David would share with their children the true story of their wedding day. It wasn't a narrative of mishaps, but a profound lesson on love, loyalty, and the essence of what truly matters. They would show them the wedding photos, pointing out the old German Shepherd in a bow tie who had profoundly shaped their lives, illustrating how life's most valuable moments often arrive in unexpected forms. Throughout their lives, they maintained the kind of love Rex had exemplified, unconditional, steadfast, and always prioritizing the essential over any flawless plan. In their living room, beside their wedding photograph, Anna and David hung a simple plaque. Its inscription read, "Sometimes love means altering your perfect plans, because true perfection isn't found in the paths we intend to take, but in the hearts that lead us home." Beneath it, Rex's collar with its tiny bow tie and Duke's collar hung side by side, each a testament to the heart's capacity to love, learn and grow, even amidst loss and change. On each anniversary, instead of indulging in lavish dinners or throwing big parties, they chose a more meaningful tradition. They visited the animal shelter, bringing donations and spending time with the older dogs. These visits were a tribute to dogs like Duke, who awaited someone to look beyond their age to the love they still offered. This was the profound legacy Rex left behind, a lesson that love, in all its varied forms, was always worth embracing and sharing, regardless of its unexpected nature or the limited time it might last.